with Nate Bailey.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back, Championship Leadership Podcast. And we have Ramona Shaw here from the Bay Area. Prior to that, Switzerland, which is awesome. So I've never been. I need to. I think that's kind of on the list of places that seem like one I should go and check out. So someday. But appreciate you being here. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Nate.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to, and I know you've done some homework on the show and listened to a few episodes, so maybe you're prepped for this question, but Championship Leadership's the name of the podcast. What comes to mind for you? You're in the leadership space as well. So what do you think of, what does championship leadership mean to you when you hear it? Yeah,
so it's interesting. I heard you ask this question, another guest, and I immediately thought, yeah, what is that for me? And the answer is pretty clear. My initial response is, for me, someone who demonstrates what I would probably call champion leadership is someone who sees themselves as a leader working for their team members and not the team members working for them. So I really think that when leaders shift that mindset from this being a privilege, and now I get to have a say, to know now I'm creating results through others, which means I'm actually in service of those that I lead. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I would 100% agree with that as well. So why don't we talk a little bit about you and who you are and kind of your journey and how that has taken you to where you are today, and, you know, a little bit more about what it is that you do today. Yeah. Like you said, I grew up in Switzerland and studied finance, thinking I might go into banking, like a typical Swiss would, I guess. Right. But I always had sort of these two parallels. There was my analytical mind that liked the banking and the financial sector and that work. I, as a young kid, would track my own shares from my portfolio. Back in the day, with like newspaper every day, you flip the pages and I would highlight my fictional portfolio. Yeah. But there was also a second sort of parallel track almost that I felt like I was on the entire time, which was I was always really curious in other people's life stories and how they set up their houses and what made them have an interest in certain things versus another and what made them unique. And sort of the two parallels ran all the way through my life. And I initially started in the finance sector. I worked in consulting, in banking, and in private equity. And while I was really, my day-to-day was spent on numbers and on data and very analytically driven, I felt like the more that I grew in my own career, the more I developed this interest in other people and in myself. And how do I grow? And how does my mind work? And how can I get better at what I do? How do I cultivate the sense of motivation and drive, but also make it sustainable? How do I improve my productivity and performance? And how do others do it? And wanting to learn from other people and role models. And I got to that point where I was leading or put in charge to lead a team fairly early on. And I did not have any training, and I also didn't have this natural leadership instinct. I wasn't a natural born leader, and I didn't really know what to do. And I would also say I lacked a bit of awareness in terms of what it meant to lead. And I struggled, and sort of moving into that first leadership role and changing my mindset from being a high-performing, highly self-motivated individual contributor to then become a leader of a team. And through that journey and sort of noticing the friction, I got more and more interested in leadership development on my own, and then try to bring that back into the organization that I worked in, but also started to really see how a lot of people, especially early on in their leadership roles, are looking for guidance, are looking for training and want to learn from others and best practices. And through my own growth journey, I started to talk about it more, started to help others more, and slowly but surely that developed or turned into this second phase of my career, which is now running this leadership development company, specifically supporting new managers transitioning into leadership for the first time, but also helping mid-level managers reach the next level in their careers. Yeah, and so it's interesting moving away from finance and back into that human aspect. So still somewhat analytically minded in my approach, but back into working with people directly, and super grateful to be able to do this work.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Quick break from our episode with Ramona Shaw, having an incredible conversation with her, but to talk about our friends over at Magic Mind. You've heard me talking about them for a little bit now. We've been working together. Really, they contacted me and asked if I could give their productivity shot drink a chance, and I said, yeah, absolutely. And I've been pleasantly surprised, to say the least. So, if you're watching this, you can see the page that they have that would be linked directly to my discount code, which is magicmind.co/championship. And you can use the discount code CHAMP to try Magic Mind out for yourself. Again, the world's first productivity shot. It negates the need for more than one cup of coffee in the morning. If you like coffee, if you're a coffee person, just like I am, you don't have to give up coffee. So number one, first and foremost, I think that's important to know, because, we're creatures of habit and we love our coffee, but we don't have to have a pot of coffee because of this incredible little productivity shot here that comes in a small little 2-ounce bottle. It's plastic. It's easy to travel with. I'm going to be traveling in the next few weeks. I'm going to be bringing this with me. You shake it. I haven't taken mine yet. So if you could hear me cracking the top open, and I just drink it straight because it tastes delicious. And again, it's just like a shot. And I love the taste. You can mix it with a few different things. If potentially you don't like the taste for whatever reason, you can mix it with some sparkling water. You can mix it with some warm milk or tea or whatever. And you'll still get the benefits of this. Gives you energy, helps you to relax, keeps you focused. I don't have that midday jitters. I don't have the spikes and the highs and lows of energy, I guess you would say, to where I need to slam a 12, 16 ounce energy drink in midday. This gives me what I need to be productive throughout the day. I love it. I'm so glad that become friends with Magic Mind, and I can't imagine not having this as a part of my daily routine now moving forward as well. So give it a shot. You can get up to 40% off depending on which route you want to go with Magic Mind to give it a chance. I know that you'll love it, so highly recommend it. Well, as I was this morning driving my daughter to horse camp, and as the listeners don't know, but Ramona, right as we were about to start, they had called, and my daughter got stepped on. She's fine. She's okay. But on the way to horse camp this morning, on the radio, they happened to be talking about how essentially like managers today are at an all-time low, it seems like, right? Like poor management, and it's leading to a lot of people. There's a high percentage of people like that have left jobs because of poor management or leadership. They use the word management. And so, what a great time it seems like for someone like yourself to come in and help these companies, these businesses, where there's it seems like a big need for some training to help them.
Well, yeah, because I think what's so interesting is we know, for example, from Gallup, who say, or the engagement surveys that showed that 70% of the variance in an employee's engagement is dependent on their direct frontline, their direct immediate manager, and frontline managers touch the biggest part of the organization, right? Yeah. So if you look at 1,000 employee organization, for example, the frontline managers touch the most amount of employees, and yet they're usually the most under-equipped, under-resourced, under-trained group of leaders. And that to me is this huge gap. And I think noticing the ripple effect that negative leadership has on the entire organization, quickly turning sort of misbehaviors into toxic environments, where then that has a ripple effect to how what leaders think, or even employees think is okay and tolerated, and where these managers set the standards. And then the reputations that companies build. I really think that in a time like this, especially with sort of the economic state that we're in, and yet really having really low unemployment rates, companies can't afford to lose their best performers.
Yeah, right.
And yet sort of their manager is probably most significant factor in this process, in addition to a few other factors, but making sure that their managers know how to create work cultures that people want to be part of, that they become leaders people want to be led by, or teams that people want to be part of. Such an important aspect. Yeah,
absolutely. Who are some of the leaders, coaches, mentors that you've had in your life that have impacted you, and more so, what are some of the characteristics that really have stood out? What are inside of their leadership styles, right?
Yeah. Oh gosh. So there've been a few managers in my personal experience that I've directly learned, for example, how to really challenge someone's thinking. I had one specific manager who was very much leaning into this coach-like approach and would hardly ever give me the answer, which at times could feel really difficult. It's like, just tell me. But I also recognize that was the time that I stretched the most and I grew the most. And let me turn this off. Give me a break. Oh my gosh, as I'm navigating a new computer, hold on. Give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also the time that I grew the most. Then there were leaders such as John Maxwell, for example, that I observed from afar, that I think has a really, really fascinating way to identify people's strength as well as their growth opportunities, and then a way to instill confidence in them. And when I say push them to step into that next level, I don't mean in a forceful way, but in a really encouraging and empowering way. Yeah. And so he's someone that I greatly respect in terms of how he developed the leaders in his organization, as well as range of organizations, as well as how he's able to take sort of complex matters and simplify them into frameworks. And then I think a great deal of my work now is inspired by sort of old philosophers, and specifically I'm interested in Stoicism, and Marcus Aurelius as an example, as someone who really practiced self-leadership frameworks that we know today, and had a really good understanding of what it meant to lead, and to lead well in an ethical way, in a courageous way, in a compassionate way. And I love diving into these old sort of timeless concepts and recognizing that back in the thousands of years ago, when people had, I don't want to say they had time. Felt like Marcus Aurelius said that he had a lot of time on his hands. But yet he still had this discipline and practice to reflect and to be still and to think about what he's doing and what he's observing. And then the philosophers who actually had the time to observe human interactions. And we haven't changed that much. So a lot of this work that was written down and captured back then is still what bubbles up and shows up in so many of the current days, or the trendy leadership development approaches and frameworks, which I think is fascinating. Yeah,
I mean, kind of timeless, right? I mean, as long as there's been people, there's been leadership.
Yeah, exactly. So, and there's been conflict.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So, you can slice it a lot of ways, but at some point there's probably only so many ways you can slice it. So yeah. What's the vision for you? I think championship leaders have incredible vision. I like to often talk or reference like Bill Belichick or Nick Saban, big football fan. So, the Patriots coach or coach of Alabama, who somehow continue to find a way year after year to, stay at the top of their profession when they have the best of the best in the world competing to take their spot every year. So I attribute to a lot of that. I think a lot of that is because of their vision and some things they're able to see differently that others can't. And not only that, but the courage to take action. So what's the big vision for you? What's the impact? And more importantly, I guess I always like to say the impact that you want to make, for 5-10 years from now.
Yeah, so my vision is related to helping create workplaces that people want to be part of, that people thrive. And I do think that this whole attitude of like, oh my gosh, it's Monday and thank God it's Friday is a bit upside down. I wished that we would, of course, we all enjoy the weekend, and the downtime is incredibly important. And yet I wish that a lot more people would want to go to work because they feel a sense of belonging in their team. They also feel a sense of contribution, and they get a great deal of satisfaction out of being able to contribute and being valued and cared for in the workplace in a very different way than they are in their family environment. And so I think there's a huge opportunity to create a lot more workplaces where people get that aspect or those needs satisfied in terms of self-actualization and contribution and significance that they want to have in their lives, and the professional world offers that. And when we can erode toxic cultures and stigmas and sort of this control and command style or these outdated leadership approaches, and instill a more compassionate, trust-based, as well as curiosity-driven approach to leadership, a lot more people will thrive. And I want to be part of the movement that creates a new generation of leaders who create workplaces and teams that people want to be part of.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Do you think there's because there's a lot of people that that will say they don't love what they do, or when you talk about that, waking up and being excited about what it is that you do, but do you believe there's a big, that the people there, AKA, I suppose, the leaders, the managers that could make that a difference, right? The people that they're working for, the culture that they're creating, the environment that's there for people to come to every day would help in getting them a little bit more excited, even though it's maybe not something that, whether it's whatever, right? Widgets or whatever it is, right? They could not be passionate about that, but they could absolutely love the place and the people that they work with because of the leadership.
100%. And I think, it's right. And it's important to also talk about the fact that certain things we can't change, and certain people will do a job because it pays their bills, and they may not feel like that's their true calling, or that's their passion, or they found this one particular thing that the purpose in life. And I think even sort of this whole idea around finding your purpose can get people into challenging situations where they put way too much weight on that question than is necessary. But there are things we can change. And I'm also not having an illusion sort of here that we would all go to work and love and be happy campers all day. But I do think very much so that their emotional and the personal aspect, interpersonal aspects in the workplace are creating a lot more stress and disengagement, demotivation in the workplace than we can even tolerate.
Yeah.
And that is where we can make a big difference. Will there be people who do things that they don't want to do? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And will it be hard for them to say like, yeah, thank God it's Monday? Yes. But they may say, another week. Yes, I'm excited to see this person, or I'm actually excited to do something that's meaningful in one way or for someone today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What this is kind of one of my favorite questions. What's a moment for you where it's a difficult place to be, big decision, critical moment, kind of the fork in the road, and obviously you made the decision that you did, which has you where you are today. But had you not, you could be in a very different place. I think there's a lot of strength for people out there that are in these positions. We have many of them, I think, throughout our lives. But is there one or two that maybe sticks out that you could share with the listeners?
Yeah, I think the biggest one for me was at a point in time where I had to decide if I wanted to leave my corporate job, which gave me a lot of security and stability. I definitely knew that I was respected in my organization, and I had a secure job with a really good paycheck, and I felt that the company was doing a good job with their employees. And overall, I enjoyed the job, right? It's not that I left out of frustration. I left because I felt there was something else that I could do and help people and have a bigger impact on society as a whole. I want to say human beings, but I want to say it's probably more at that point I thought, oh, I could have a bigger impact on society as a whole and use my time working for that. But what happened, and is I'm not saying that, going off and starting your own business is for everyone, but I do think that we all land in situations where we have to pause and let go of some of the security or the comfort that we have in order to step into a new chapter and see what potential we actually have. And what in that moment when I decided to let go of my job, it was hard to understand for some people in my environment or in my circle of family and friends. But yet I knew deep down, like I had to. And I could also tolerate failure. And it would be okay if a year later I would say, you know what, it's a great run.
Yeah.
Didn't work out. And I would be okay with that. I prepared as much as I could to say, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to try this. I will lose safety. I will lose a sense of security. I don't know yet where my paycheck is coming from. And, I have 3 kids and I have responsibilities, and it's not just me. Other people are impacted by my decisions as well. But stepping into the discomfort is what allowed me to achieve my goals. And I do think the more we tolerate discomfort, the higher our chances of success in whatever success looks to us. And I think every moment in my life where I noticed this accelerated growth and impact was because I was willing to be uncomfortable and vulnerable and exposed in ways that I was like, oh my gosh, this really shakes me to the core. But thank God I'm not in the business of life or death, really. The world will keep spinning and everyone will be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you sharing that powerful. So what's if there's one or two things as we wrap up here, that if the listeners were to, put into action, principles or guide points for their life, right? If they were to apply them and take action right now, and help move their life forward today, what would that be?
Yeah, I would say like if you have listen to the hunches that you have, the hunch of like, maybe I should say something, the hunch of maybe I should do, the hunch of maybe someone needs my help. And instead of asking if they need my help, maybe I just write them a card or stop by and do something nice or let them know how much I appreciate them, even if it's maybe a little bit uncomfortable in the moment. But those, I think we have such good intuition, all of us. And sometimes sort of the vulnerability holds us back of saying something or doing something. And say, let go those guards and listen to those hunches you have to do good and have an impact on the people that you work with or interact with most closely, or even from afar.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's excellent advice. And I think the more that you get in tune with that, the more you realize how much that's so true, right? When you can trust it and go with it. So yeah, absolutely. What are a few ways to know? We didn't really even get into it, but you do have a book, you have a podcast, and so yeah, let us know about that and ways that we can follow you and kind of keep up with what you're up to. Yeah.
My book is The Confident and Competent New Manager, available on Amazon. This is really a book about helping leaders or new leaders see how their mindset, their attitude, as well as their behaviors need to change in order to be successful in what I consider to be the biggest transition someone makes in their career, moving from an individual contributor role into a leadership role, and how to navigate these this unknown territory that comes with some challenges and potential pitfalls. The Manager Track podcast is the podcast that I run for new managers and mid-level managers who are looking to sort of see what works and what isn't working. Include some stoicism in there as well, and mindset shifts as well as very tactical, practical things that will help them in their job. Otherwise, my website is ramonashaw.com, and I'm also on LinkedIn and some other social media platforms to connect.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate your time today. We'll get all that linked up for everybody that's listening as well, of course. But I appreciate this time today, and it was a good conversation. So thank you.
Thank you as well. Appreciate it, Nate.
With Nate Bailey.